Poredna so brojmi broma zakolečeve beton čoko vi nagrad vi sele koka on po počat. Veličislav Molotov. The problem with free elections is that you never know how they'll turn out. So there's many teams and many eras of Soviet propaganda from 1921, the founding, even all the way up to 1990, which is basically the end of the Soviet Union. But we're going to focus on a bit of pre-World War II, and we're going to focus on very heavy teams that still influence the Soviet Union, even all the way up to World War II. And some of them have been revoked in World War II. We're going to get into what I mean by that in a minute. But there's obviously anti-Polish, anti-Tsar, anti-capitalist, the proletariats, the anti-intellectuals, obviously anti-religion, propaganda of extermination, which is to dehumanize and reduce the person, especially the Germans in World War II, to nothing but a savage beast. There's also anti-Trotskyism, which is especially when Stalin grew power. Stalin never really liked Trotsky from the beginning because he had the ideal communism. He was the actual communist. Stalin was kind of power hungry. So when he got himself into power, he kind of made the Trotsky cult of personality wane on him, and actually he made him become an enemy of the state. There's also the cult of personality from Lenin all the way up to Mikhail Gorbachev in the last Soviet Union leader, which is even if they failed, basically what a cult of personality is, even if they failed, they're still admired as a hero, especially like in a great war or a great crisis. Even though their previous failures would still be known, they would actually have the, say Stalin did the Great Purges and the Great Famine of the 1930s. World War II basically made all that go away in a sense. So that is basically the cult of personality. They can do no wrong. They're basically a god in the people's eyes. Also, there's peace-loving, this is very ironic, the mass movement and internationalism. The mass movement is more Eurocentric, while internationalism is, well, speaks for itself, international. So China, El Salvador, Nicaragua. There's a new society in the Soviet Union as well to build a greater society for the people. There's also the class enemy, which are proletariats, anti-communists, intellectuals, even artists, which are kind of categorized as intellectuals, but artists that speak out against the Soviet Union, and many other class enemies in the Soviet Union, especially landowners and factory owners, all that, everything to deal with capitalism in a sense. And the new man of the Soviet Union was basically to make a positive hero, a person to strive to be in the new Soviet era. And also they had books, newspaper, had theatre, and had arts, had propaganda posters, and even a propaganda train, which is pretty cool. But let us fast forward to World War II. The Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, pre-World War II, pro-Nazi propaganda in a sense. In the face of the massive Soviet bewilderment, the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact was defended by the Speaker of Gorky Park. Molotov defended it in the article of Prava, proclaiming that it was a treaty between states and not systems. Stalin himself even devised diagrams to show that Chamberlain was actually trying to pit the USSR against Nazi Germany, but Comrade Stalin was wise to pit Great Britain against Nazi Germany. So for the duration of the pact, propagandists highly praised the Germans and their actions for what they were doing, especially in Poland, because, you know, the Soviets were very anti-Polish. And anti-German and anti-Nazi propaganda was actually banned, like Professor Malloch, for a short period of time before Operation Barbarossa. So, anti-German sentiment. Stalin himself declared in a 1941 broadcast that Germany had waged war to exterminate the people of the United Socialist States, of Russia, or the USSR, propaganda was published in Pravda, denouncing all Germans as killers, bloodsuckers, and cannibals. Partisans were encouraged to see themselves as the avengers, liberators, and freers of the European continent. Ilya Edinburgh was promoted to propaganda writer in the same year. Many anti-German films had re-emerged and actually been made, especially Professor Malok and the Orpheum family, Girl 217, depicting the horrors inflicted on Russian POWs, especially the enslavement of the main girl Tatya in the humane German family of Girl 217, reflecting the harsh treatment of the OTS Arbeiter in Nazi Germany. Basically, what a OTS Arbeiter is, basically not really a slave, but in the sense is basically slave them to Fortress Europe in that part of Europe in that time. So a Pole, a Czech, a Slovakian, a Yugoslavian, or even a Russian would be captured, especially mostly civilians, some soldiers as well, but mostly civilians were captured and brought back to Nazi Germany, where they would be put into households to basically work as a slave. Basically, slavery, in a sense, like the American slave trade, in a sense, the European slave trade, in a sense, where people will be taken from their homes and basically put into random places on the European continent, in a sense. So that's basically the OTS Arbeiter. I will post a link if you want to read about it, but it's kind of a fate worse than concentration camps, honestly, because they could do whatever they want to you. And while the Jewish problem in Nazi Germany, we'll touch on this, it's a very dark subject, but while the Jews in Nazi Germany were seen upon as just scum of the earth, there was still news to, especially a lot of blacks and other minorities, but the Jews, before the final solution, they were basically made to make stuff that the Germans didn't want to, so freeing up the German hand, especially for the war. So the Jews would be in the factories making ammunition and guns and all this kind of stuff, with other minorities deemed undesirable. Despite the treatment of religion, I told you we'll come back to religion, of course. Despite the treatment of religion, there's the revival of orthodoxy that was permitted during World War II to demonize the Nazi as soulless and the sole enemy of religion, because even though religion was banned, people could still kind of practice it in their homes if they were careful, if they were watchful, with a secret police. So, Vlasin Grossman and Mikhail Andreyevich were correspondents of the Karanika Zaivinka, which is the Red Star, to Germans versus Hitleritarians, basically. Soviet propaganda to the Germans in World War II was to paint a disgusting picture between the ordinary Germans and their leaders, the Hitler-Ts, and declaring that they had no quarrel with the people of Germany. The only way to discover if a German soldier had fallen alive in Soviet hands was to actually listen to the radio, which announced that a certain prisoner would speak, give them their time and name, and they would be given some time for his family to gather and listen and fill in what had happened in the propaganda. A national committee of Free Germany was founded in the Soviet prisoner of war camps in an attempt to foment a uprising in Germany against Nazi rule, especially in 1943-1944, that kind of time. So basically, it was basically a kind of propaganda piece to actually, well, I want my child back, I want my son back, I want my grandfather back, I want my father back, so I want to start an uprising in Germany and say, Hitler, I want my alive brother, son, father, grandfather back. So revolution inside of Nazi Germany. Also, there's anti-fascism. While the Soviets really had no quarrel with Italy, it was still in a quote-unquote union or allied powers, so they kind of had to declare war on Italy and of course Japan, but all around there was basically anti-fascist, especially during the Spanish Civil War, which saw many Allied and Axis powers created for the first time, testing new technologies and new tactics and new tanks in the Spanish Civil War to help out Franco, the Spanish dictator, all the way up to the 1980s. The face of the threat of Nazi Germany, the international claims of communism were played down, and the people were resorted to help defend the country in patriotic motives. The presence of the real enemy against the fatherland of the Soviet Union, or Mother Russia, all Soviet citizens were called to fight, and soldiers who surrendered had failed to do their duty. To prevent retreats from Stalingrad, soldiers were urged to fight for the soil and die on that soil. Also, there's the infamous not one step back, so they didn't really have a choice. History was pressed into providing a heroic past and making many patriotic symbols like Alexander the Great, Ivan the Terrible, Tsar Alexander, I believe, Alexander Nevsky, which made a central theme of importance for the common people in saving Russia, while noble and merchants did nothing. A monarch who was heavily employed, still the figure selected for a non-socialist connection, Alexander Nevsky proved, in the face of all these obstacles, that he still prevailed and freed the Russian people from their bonds, and was actually technically the first Tsar of Russia. Also Alexander the Great, the greatest Russian to expand the empire beyond beliefs. And World War II wasn't called World War II in Russia, fun fact. It was actually called the Great Patriotic War, and it's still called the Great Patriotic War to this day. And in the term of motherland, it was news to mean the Soviet Union, while Russian heroes were revived, and there was actually some Russian heroes made within the war itself, such as called Mamitovka, which is a infantry-based woman, Nina Lityak, and there's also the Russian female sniper, Laminda Pavlivnehenko, the male sniper Vasily Zaitsev, all the Soviet heroes that I could list off the top of my head. Kind of had to go to Wikipedia for one or two of them. And a bit of tidbit for you, even in all the way up to the 1960s, to revive the memory of the Great Patriotic War, to obviously boast some morale and support for the regime, with all accounts and careful censorship to prevent accounts of Stalin's early incompetence and defeats and heavy costs and heavy losses. All the way up to the 1960s, to revive the memory of the Great Patriotic War, to obviously boast some morale and support for the regime, with all accounts and careful censorship to prevent accounts of Stalin's early incompetence and defeats and heavy costs and heavy losses. So there you go, that's Russia propaganda of World War II. I kind of just wanted to do America, but that's pretty much it. As you can see, my Russian is getting very good, my friend. So that's pretty much it, 20 minutes long. Redux is hard to do, but pretty rewarding. I see 20 minutes right now, but that could be cut down to 18 minutes maybe. So das Vidania. Also, Russia is coming. We got the Russian DLC on the way, but I have to unlock certain weapons, especially the Mosin and all this other stuff. And Tannenberg, not seeing a release date, but the alpha is wrapping up, I hear, so we might get a beta, and after the beta that's pretty much released, because Verdun was basically an alpha, a little beta, and then it basically popped out of nowhere, so hopefully Tannenberg could do the same. So that's pretty much it. Das Vidania, Russia is coming soon. Would really like to get Tannenberg on board, because it's a bit realistic and it plays to the style. There's nothing against women, because of course we're going to do the female battalion of death. That's going to be a minority report, along with the Cossacks and the Hussars. But I have a Battlefield 1 video that I'm going to post maybe tomorrow or Wednesday, and I'm going to do a few other videos in the week. Going to do a mini test, see if posting like every other day would be better than just posting on a Saturday. And yeah, that's pretty much it, because I'm basically home now. I've been sending out a couple of CVs and stuff, still looking for work. I'm not going to stay home for the rest of my life, so still looking for it. So I guess we might as well push out all the videos while we're home, and then At least when I go back, if I get a job and get Saturdays or something off, we could always just go back to Saturday or Sunday and still have more than enough content to get through even when things start to slow back down. So before I go over 25 minutes, I'm going to say thank you again. Really love the support. Going 200 views on Passchendaele, not even a month yet, but that's pretty dope. It took me like a year to get 200 and something views on island hopping, so that's pretty good. Been averaging like 50, 60 views, so that's pretty good. Alright, das Vidania, for real this time. Mick Bliet.
Моя, в саду ягода, малинка, малинка
Пойдут машины, каждый поход. Тогда домой пошлет товарищ Сталин, и первый маршал воинов победит.